In the spirit of trying to go as many days as possible, uploading at least one video a day, I'm going to make one today about my recent experience on Cedar Island Ranch. This one's going to be about some inconsistencies I noticed with things Quinn actually said and did. For those of you who don't know or didn't remember from previous videos, Quinn was a teenager, 16-year-old kid who would come help out at the barn after school and on weekends. He'd do typical duties like help muck the stalls, help refill the water troughs for the horses, help us feed and hay the horses, help us resand the stalls. So basically, and he'd been there, he'd been living on Cedar Island, as far as I was told, for like a couple of years before I showed up. Originally, he and his family were from, if I recall correctly, Kansas City, Missouri. I believe, or Liberty, Missouri, or both. His dad, Renny, owned a security company, and was basically retired, I was told. I know at one point, Renny had to fly home or back to their hometown, city, state, to deal with some business with the company. And Quinn bragged several times about the fact that his dad had met, a bunch of celebrities like Keanu Reeves through his security business. But now, as far as I understood, Renny and his wife Tracy and their son Quinn, Renny was retired and they'd moved to Cedar Island, and they were waiting on like a property he'd bought to be finished being built, I guess. So they seemed nice. So one inconsistency with something Quinn said to me and did, this was, I want to say this was within the first month that I was there, working there, but closer towards the end of that month. I remember because it was far enough into the job that I was like, oh, I had already clocked this one thing. It was kind of ridiculous that he didn't think that I'd noticed it. But it was still pretty early enough that I was still kind of getting to know him. So maybe the third week I was there or something like that. But anyway, so I was towards the back of the barn by the feed bin. So there's an old ice cream cooler there that they keep the feed in. And then there's another bigger cooler right next to it that's not used for anything. It's just really dirty, and it's mostly just used as a table. Things are just sitting on top of it. And then next to that is shelving unit and all this stuff I was going through. And there's shelves on the wall above the feed bin. Where all the horse brushes and medicines and stuff are kept. And I was in the process of going through and trying to organize and wipe down and clean as much of the barn as possible. Because it looked, I know it's a barn, but there's certain standards for barns even. And it looked it's just, anyway. So I'm just trying to get it a little bit less, especially in the back of the barn and on the shelving unit. So stuff had just been sitting there collecting dust and rusting for what looked like, if not months, years. And it's just some of this could use a wiping down, guys, or just throw it away. It's just caked in rust and dust and it's been sitting out in salty air and sand and dust blowing around all over it. And sometimes stuff like vet wrap would be one of those things, and then they'd use that to bandage up a horse, and it's we could keep that stuff, that sort of thing, in the bins, these in some Tupperware bins, so that it's protected from the elements. So I was trying to go through and make things a little bit more sanitary, just a smidge, and a little bit more organized and wiped down and stuff. So I was in the back of the barn and kind of in the process of doing that at the time. I believe I was doing something in the back of the barn, and this was about the time that I was going through and doing like this big cleaning, reorganizing, wiping down project, which I felt like the dudes weren't super happy with. And like there's like some of it they were pleased with, and some of it they were pleased with it when stuff like, oh, you know, everything's nice and wiped down and swept up. But when it's a matter of like, hey, could you guys help keep it that way? Like, could you guys put your shoes off to the side here instead of just flinging them off your feet and like leaving them all over the floor? So that way, like, there's less just dirt flung all over the floor, like, you know, like, and I didn't nag them about it. Like, what I did was, like, I would just move their shoes quietly off to the side. Once I nagged Quinn about just leaving his gloves on the desk, just flinging them there. It's like, because then we have to move your gloves, take time out of our day to move your gloves out of the way. If we have to do anything on the desk, like lay a paper down and write there, you know, what desks are for. There's this whole space over here that I made where like you could hang your hat and put your gloves and all that, so that you're not taking up other people's time even when you're not here. You know, like explaining to the teenager how to not be self-centered and narcissistic and not waste our coworkers' time. Anyway, so I don't think they appreciated that too much. Barn mom being a mom. So he was like talking at me when I was doing stuff in the back of the barn, and I was kind of half listening, trying to pay attention and like chat back with him, but also trying to pay attention to what I was doing, like focus on what I was doing. And then he does something to like draw attention to himself. He says something or whatever, and I look over at him, and he's going, hi! He's looking up above me in like the corner of the room, the corner ceiling of the room, and of the barn, and going, hi guys, hi! And I realize he's waving hi to the camera above me. And the way he was doing, and I was like, well, first of all, I was like, what are you doing? And like, I knew that's what he was doing. I knew he was waving behind the camera, but what I couldn't figure out was like, why the F he was doing it. I think he thought I was asking him like what he was actually doing. He was like, because he said, I'm waving hi to the owners. He's like, I'm saying hi to the owners. And I was like, and I didn't want to reward the idiocy with too much word stuff. So I was just like, he's like, yeah, there's cameras out. Oh, yeah. And so he's like, see, there's cameras. Like, he pointed out to me there are cameras. And the way he did it was like the tone being used. It felt like, first of all, it felt like he thought that he was pointing it out to me and that I hadn't already noticed the cameras. He thought like he was just pointing it out, like he was pointing something out to me that I hadn't already noticed. And he was kind of looking to see, gauging what my response was going to be. So it seemed like, you know, like it was kind of like a kid who's kind of excited because he's like it's like, look, daddy, look, or look, mommy, look. And mommy or daddy already know what's there. Like, oh yeah, you're leading me into the birthday party. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, there's a cake. Duh. You know, like something like that. It's like, obviously. And looking to see what your reaction is. And then a little bit of deflation when you're not like reacting the way, when you're not like, oh my gosh, a cake. When you're more like, yeah, a cake. Yep. Good job. You know, so the way I reacted was like, yeah, okay. And then went back to like doing my thing. Cause I'd already clocked the freaking, cameras. I think like the second day I was on the job, and this was maybe like 3 weeks in. I remember a ridiculous amount of time had gone by. Not ridiculous, but a good amount of time had gone by. A solid like 2 to 3 weeks had gone by between him like pointing the cameras out to me and me I'd already noticed them, and me being like, what am I, an idiot? I didn't say it. I was thinking like, does this kid think I'm a freaking moron? So, and what I was thinking was like, the owners know you're here. They know the cameras are there. I know the cameras are there. I'm not an idiot. The owners know they're there. They put them there. The owners know you're here. They're paying you to do a job. The job they're paying you to do is not stand there and gawk at the cameras and wave at them like an idiot. Freaking doofus, okay? They're paying you to go muck the stalls and feed the horses and so on and so forth. Like, get back to work. That's what they want to see you doing. If they're even bothering to watch. I figured those cameras were mostly, like, probably... I didn't figure, like, they're sitting there just watching us on the cameras all the time. You know, I figured they were probably up for, like, if something does go wrong, they can go back and look at camera feed. So I'm just like, I didn't want to, like, reward the stupid teenage, like, attention grabbing is what I took it for at the time, with, like, too much attention. So it's just like, okay, and got back to work. So note that's important incident where he's treating the cameras in the barn. There are cameras all over inside the barn, and like a couple up on the outside front of the barn, and then there's supposed to be one on the outside back of the barn, but that's being blocked mostly by the porta potty. And again, I was told on purpose. Here's how it kind of got around to me being told that. After my kitten, Princess Buttercup, disappeared right out back behind the barn, and I was like trying to think of ways I could figure out what happened to her, and maybe like what if she ran off in a certain direction, if she just got a little injured and like she ran off, and maybe that could help me pinpoint where I could start going to look for her. One of the things I mentioned in the barn while Quinn was right there was, do you think maybe like the camera out back would have caught something? There's cameras up everywhere. Like it happened right out back there. Do you think maybe the cameras out back would have seen something? And that's when Quinn was like, no, they're mostly for show. And it's like, oh, well then why, I didn't say this at the time, but it's like, well, why were you like waving at them like a month ago or whatever? Because I guess, you know, when Buttercup disappeared, it was late November, so it would have been like a month after he was waving at the camera. It's like, why were you waving at them like a month or so ago, as if we were definitely being watched by people right then on the camera, if they're mostly just for show? And he was also kind of one of the people I got the sense from, like, that he didn't necessarily really want me to get a dog or go like looking too much, or I don't know. It was just a lot of people's reactions were really weird, and people's inconsistencies were really weird. And another thing about, I mean, I know he'd been living there for 2 years and probably had been working in the barn for the better part of those 2 years. I don't know. I know a part of him probably didn't like me coming into work there and sort of being placed in a position that was a bit above him in a lot of ways. I think both of those kids, both Mina and Quinn didn't like that he saw me as like a newbie, telling them what to do around the barn when they had been there longer than I had been. But I'm significantly older and have more life experience and make decisions less upon my own selfishness and more upon what's the right thing to do. Which you can't necessarily trust a teenager so much to do that. Teenagers. So it's like, dude, but I know. And so because of that, it's like, good luck explaining to them like why they should listen to the new chick showing up and working at the barn, who's like telling them things to do. But a lot of it's also like, these are orders from Jorge, dudes. He told me to do it this way, so I'm telling you to do it the way that Jorge told me to do it. Like, stop giving me shit, man. Stop telling me you know what to do shit that I'm telling you to do. Like, fucking 3 times your age, for fuck's sake. Anyway, those two were pain in the ass sometimes. I liked both of them, actually, but, like, they're also a pain in the ass, but it's, like, they're teenagers. What are you gonna do? So even though he'd been there a while, he also seemed to, like, know, he talked about the business, like, we're just getting into the swing of things with the business and stuff like that. Like he was a part of the business or something along those lines, which made me wonder if Renny had something set up as, like, security for that business, too, for that island, even though he's, like, retired there. Maybe he's also running security detail sort of there. I I don't know. But, and the fact that, you know, he's waving at the cameras, but then also saying, oh, they're just for show. How would you know if they're just for show? You're not one of the owners. You're a 16-year-old kid who works in this barn after school and on weekends. And your dad and mom don't technically work, as far as I know, for the company, for the ranch. They're just, they're retired. They're living in their trailer at the RV park. So how would you know, kiddo, if those cameras are just for show? And it just felt like a lot of ideas I was coming up with for trying to figure out what happened to Buttercup were being dissuaded and shut down. Not just by Quinn, but by like lots of people, but Quinn too. So that was one glaring inconsistency in stuff that Quinn was saying to me and doing. So, and there's going to be another video going into some stuff about with Mina. But I'm going to keep this one short. It's already over 15 minutes, so. There's my one a day.